What's up, everybody, and welcome to the show. Today on the Movement as Medicine show, we're going to get into an interesting topic, and that is around creating medical independence and empowerment. I have Dr. Lee in the house. I have Dr. Angila Jaeggli from Sage Med Clinic.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you.
What's up, Barry? How's it going, guys? So today, interesting topic. I feel like that the healthcare and kind of our personal approach to healthcare and both in our professional practitioner approach to healthcare has really changed over time. So if we go back and I think about, when I was growing up in the 80s and even into the 90s, it's like you had your doctor, you went and saw your one doctor, and that doctor kind of told you what to do. And you were very much, again, this was pre-internet, you were very much at the kind of the mercy of that doctor if they were good or not, and I can remember some doctors I've had in my experience that were great and others that weren't so great, but it seemed like back then there weren't a lot of options. Now fast forward 2022 and there's a very different scene when it comes to our health and wellness decisions.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, I remember that same thing. Like, you have your one doctor, or your parents had the one doctor, and they're like, you do this one thing, and everybody was like, I will absolutely do that one thing, and I will not question it, and I don't care if I'm getting side effects from whatever it is, and I feel like that's changing too, that people are, maybe that's because of Google, they can just jump on and go, is that really true?
And
I'm not so sure.
Probably it has something to do with it.
Sorry. That I think it's good for people to question and for people to seek alternatives and seek, other ways to support themselves, so that's where I think it's really important to, as we were discussing earlier, like to build a team around people.
And that's kind of what we want to get into today, this idea of like, okay, you need a team, you don't need one doctor. And,
Absolutely.
You ultimately at the end of the day, what is our job? Our job is to, of course, heal, our guide, inform, but really, as Lee was saying before we jumped on this podcast, our goal is to empower people. So why don't you speak more about that?
Yeah, so I mean, like you were saying, like everybody used to see like one doctor, and it was like you saw your MD, and that was like the doctor, that was it. And it's like now we're transitioning to more like a lot of people more into like preventative care, like proactive care. Like they want to be good, they don't want to fall into sickness, they don't want to address it after they're sick, they want to do it before. So like especially in our clinic, like what we like to do is we like to teach people how to get out of pain themselves. And that's to teach like specific corrective exercises for a condition or like a general set of exercises you can do to release muscles, things of that sort. Just basically give them like a checklist that they can go through on their own. So they're like, I've done all these things and I still don't feel good. I'm going to go get this checked out. Like that's actually like the best way to go about it, is to exhaust like your own options that you have in your brain and then go to somebody who's an expert on it. Like if I had a headache for a week and I couldn't get rid of it, I'd go see Dr. Jaeggli like the next day. Like honestly, within 3 to 4 days. I usually don't let it go past 3 or 4 days, because if it is, then it's an issue.
Yeah.
But that empowerment of just knowing that like you've done enough is very helpful in sorting out the actual issue itself. And then when you go to the doctor, you tell them all the things that you did that didn't work. They don't have to start from square one. Like, did you try this? Did you try that? Did you do all this? It
And
just makes
you're
the
the
job
right
easier.
doctor when they listen to that, and they that's part of the conversation, because
Absolutely.
I've had experiences in the last number of years, both with myself and with family members, where in a kind of traditional medical setting, and this isn't a strike against traditional MDs or anything, and I'm not like evangelizing against traditional medicine. I think it's great, but conventional is sometimes all of that experimenting, whatever, and kind of going through that checklist and was just thrown in the garbage. It was like completely disregarded, and
Right.
it was like, we're gonna tell you what it is, even if. And sometimes that's good, because sometimes the expert knows things that the novice who has self-research does not know.
Right.
That is true. I mean, I of course, I'm a huge fan of preventative medicine, right? Of all the things that I think if you are trying to treat yourself for a condition, that's where it gets a little tricky, and that I think having the right guidance is a great idea. And again, maybe that does come back to your team, of going back, maybe you need several opinions, like you have your MD and they tell you one thing, but they don't really address supplements or diet or any of those things. And so then you go to your naturopathic doctor, your functional medicine doctor, and you loop in your chiropractor as well, like say if it's pain or something structural or, and many times even if it seems like, oh, this is just a digestive issue. Well, if your spine is out of alignment, I mean that, even though part of it maybe is diet and you have like bacterial overgrowth, you still need your thoracic spine aligned to have optimal digestive function. So, I agree with you. I mean, I love guided preventative approach, and not trying to completely treat yourself in whatever condition it is without maybe some guidance from somebody that you trust. And of course, maybe I'm a little biased, but from a holistic approach, right?
Absolutely. I mean, building your health is like building a house. Like you're not going to have a carpenter the whole time. You're going to bring in the electrician. You're going to bring in the plumber. You're going to bring in the person that does the insulation or the person that does the HVAC system. There's a lot of different intricate things that you have to do. And if you're only picking the person that hammers all the time, they're going to try to hammer everything. And sometimes you have to screw something or you have to take it out or whatever it is. Like it's just the way that life is. So if we're always trying to do the same thing over and over, like that's ultimately insanity, right?
It's a great analogy. Yeah, it's a great analogy. I feel like sometimes, and again, not to pick on, traditional medicine either, but like say if you see a surgeon for something, many times their solution is surgery, right? Of course, because they're a surgeon, and so they're going to want to do that surgery when maybe sometimes it's not their
That's
other
their tool,
options.
right?
Exactly. That's their tool.
Now, if they're great, they'll know when is the right time to do surgery and when is the time, right? But I feel like, again, and I don't want to go, I'm resisting going down this rabbit hole of like talking about everything I feel like is wrong or challenging in a traditional medical setting. But one of the things that I know is very difficult for doctors is that in that MD kind of traditional clinic style setting or in even hospital setting is the very limited amount of time that they have and the intense amount of pressure on them, both financially as well as just kind of structurally, like how that whole thing is set up to operate is they're moving really quickly and they don't really have that time to go deep with one particular person.
Right.
Even when they're a specialist, oftentimes their time is limited.
Right. Well, I mean, I'd say a lot of friends that are orthopedists. So they do orthopedic surgeries, and it's like they are just as reliant upon their team. That when they see you, they're already certain that you need to see them for their type of care because they're relying upon their team as well.
To filter and sort and help make sure all the things get checked before a person gets to the spot where it's like surgery is the right step.
Yeah, so like if you're starting off, like you rolled your ankle and you're going to the orthopedist the next day, then you're already skipping steps. Like you should be going to like either your massage therapist or your chiropractor, your physical therapist, your acupuncturist, whoever it is. You shouldn't just rush to like the end goal, right? The end tool. You got to like knock off those easy things first and then maybe go that route.
Mm-hmm. Totally. That's a great way to look at it. And that's what I think when we're talking about building a medical team or building a team around you that can help service this incredible machine that is your body, that's a great way to look at it is like, okay, depending on what's going on, I have different places that I would go see and different specialists and or / generalists in their particular area where I'm going to go check in with. And I think, Dr. Angela brought up an awesome point around going to see an MD and an ND and having two different perspectives on one thing can be really eye-opening, actually, and very beneficial when it comes to the patient care. Yeah.
And I think, we are very, very careful not to outright dismiss, the things that their MD is saying. Because, of course, I want to come back to your point that I also have friends who are MDs. And actually, it's a frustration of theirs, too, that if they're locked into a system that they don't have time, that they maybe have 5 minutes, and so that gives you enough time to address one, okay, you have a sinus issue, I'm going to give you an antibiotic or,
right.
See you later. Sorry, I can't help you with anything else. So many times, yes, they are working from what they have, And
if they don't help you, then they're going to get chastised for it.
Yeah.
Like if they don't give you the pain pill, then they did nothing for you, that treatment.
Right. So most people are coming for some sort of solution. So doing that is a way that they can at least maybe temporarily help, So many times if I find that there is something that like a medication I don't love because I know its side effects, things like that, I will loop back in their doctor, and discuss that, just have a really open discussion conversation with the patient, going, hey, listen, let me just tell you, this is, I don't think this is probably working that well for you. And here are the potential side effects. And we maybe need to explore some other ways to do this, and we really need to jump in, and I need to work on your, we need to measure these vitamin levels, or we need to work on your inflammation in a different way. And while keeping as much as possible, like their primary in the loop of what we're doing. And then if their primary says, I'm not, usually I usually these days don't hear, which is really interesting, that the primary says don't do, or like, I completely disagree with the vitamins or the supplements. And I think where that's coming from, because I've seen this change over the years, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but is because of consumer demand. So it's more like somebody coming into their primary or their MD and going, I am doing all of these vitamins. And if they say, I'm sorry, I don't want you to do these, the patient leaves and does them anyway.
Just go somewhere else.
They just don't tell their doctor.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They just go, okay, well, this is something I realize you and I can't talk about. And so I'm going to do it anyway.
Which is even probably the worst thing you can do, honestly.
Yeah.
Right? You need cohesion of care.
Right, exactly. So I think that in the traditional system, they've realized that. Like, so many times the patient will say, the person says, well, I just don't know that much about that. And that is a very good and honest answer. So it's fine, so that's where we have to be looped in, right?
Right.
On this medical empowerment kind of angle too, what are your thoughts on, starting off of like looking at, okay, some things a person should know about themselves. What are your thoughts on, getting some genetic testing done as like a baseline thing that
I love
could
it.
be really beneficial for people?
Yeah, I love it.
It's great for people that love that type of information. Like some people, like myself, if I have that much information, that's a little too much information. Like I like my day-to-day feeling, and then I'll go from there most of the time. But like there are certain people that have recurring things that like they want to figure it out, and it's like it's consuming them not knowing what it is. So I think that's a great move in that mind.
And I think that there are different kinds of genetic information. Some people may or may not want to know if they have risk of breast cancer, something like that. That's something that is, could be helpful, sometimes not, because it's not a guarantee, if you have those genes that's going to pop up. But what I do think is helpful, and I really like to see on everyone, is the vitamin genetics, so that to me is like, if you cannot make, say, glutathione very well, which is our super antioxidant, right? And fantastic for the brain and the lungs and the liver and all of that. So if you literally have a difficult time making that and you're chronically running low, I think it's good to know. And so you can know that about vitamin C, you can know that about B vitamins, you can know that about D, so we can go through all of that and go, oh my, let's, it's truly like personalized, like nutrient therapy to see all of that and then be able to adjust. So I love that stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
See,
but it is detailed.
Like a subset,
that's
really,
cool.
that you could geek out on that. You'd like that because that's very actionable too.
It is.
Right.
It is. You can, you could absolutely correct things. And what I notice is that when we do that for someone, they feel they feel so good. They feel amazing. Yeah.
Well, it's empowering, and it gives them a reason for why they're feeling like they're off, right?
Yeah.
And
exactly.
just knowing why you're feeling off is oftentimes like the biggest hurdle to get better.
Yes. And where maybe it's coming from.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you. I love it. We could go deep and long on this topic, and I appreciate the insights into how we can create more empowerment for the individual by building a medical team. Dr. Lee, Dr. Angela, it was awesome.
It's awesome.
Yeah, great
It's
chat.
great.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. We'll catch you on the next show.
Sounds great.
All right.
Bye.